One. Hey everyone, welcome to Inside the Firm, where we talk business, we talk development, and we talk shop. So if you have a business, architecture business, or want to get inside the head of some principals, we're your guy. So I'm your host, Alex Gore, here with our other host, Lance Cayko.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Hey, it's going good. I answered for them. So,
how do you know we don't have an audience? The people don't know. Hey, over here. Nothing?
That would be awesome. We fake.
If there was a live audience or faked live audience.
Yeah. First, let's give a shout out to one of our buddies, Matt Perry. He's starting his own business. He cruised through all of our episodes, and he was upset that we didn't have more. So, Perry, we wish you all the best, and you kind of sent us a little rant. So we'll kind of answer some of your questions. You want to kick it off, Lance?
Yeah. So one of the questions Matt asked is, what would this when you go to buy a printer, and and for us, for architects, right, we print on huge scale paper. So for us, we made the decision. We have 11 we have two matching printers. They're 11 by 17. We used, I think they're the Brother brand or something like that. They work pretty well. We can do wireless printing now. But one of the things we've done from the beginning was we decided to never buy a plotter, because in school it was just a mess trying to plot. And maybe it was because our school didn't have the newest, latest, and greatest. But I still remember them breaking down quite often. It was just an awful mess.
And we never want to deal with them. I remember at Liebskin that they had newer, fancier stuff, and they would still break down.
Oh.
I was blown away because we'd get an email, and it would say, plotters down. So I expected, like NDSU, it would take 24 hours to fix. And then 10 minutes later, plotters up. And I thought in my head, man, if you are fixing this stuff in 10 minutes, why even let the whole office know? Who cares?
Right.
Because you're only probably pissing off one person that's trying to do it right now. The rest of us are doing whatever.
We also couldn't afford a plotter right away.
Well, that's true. But the other thing I was going to say is that because they are a hassle, and even the new ones are a hassle, like they have a professional person at Liebskin. And that professional in-house, whatever you want to call him, the
IT manager, whatever.
Yep. He isn't just an individual IT manager. He's part of a bigger firm. So sometimes when something big would happen, either the server or the plotter, so let's say in 10 minutes he didn't fix it. Let's say it was taking 15 minutes. An email will come out and say, hey, there's a huge problem here. I'm going up to higher headquarters. We'll figure it out. And then he'd either call like someone who knew everything about printers, or they'd send one like right over. It's New York, but they'll get there in 5 minutes. And then it'd be fixed in 45 minutes instead of 15. So
yeah.
So I don't want to hire like that
exactly.
person.
This podcast is focused for. I think it's focused for like probably firms of 12 or less. Right. We're small firm architects. So that advice I think goes for people of 12 or less. Why, if you don't have the capability to purchase the thing and then like hire this person that's only going to be dedicated to do all the IT stuff, why not just farm out the printing? It's really not that much extra, and at the end of the day, our clients pay for it, right? Because it's a hard cost. We used to mark up 10% on our drawings. We don't do that anymore. It's just a hard cost straight through. Nobody likes that little markup. We're not contractors, so we're not marking up materials.
And we've gotten set in our ways, and as we like to pretend that we're nimble and on the cutting edge. So the printer we use,
keyword pretend.
Yeah, pretend. A couple blocks away, same price as everyone else, and we go print them, pick them up. They're normally pretty fast. You can send them, and within an hour you can go get them. There's another printing service here in Longmont that will just bring them to you.
Deliver them.
Yep, and they're 2 cents a square foot cheaper. We haven't gone with them just because we're getting to be a really rich, established firm.
So that's not really exactly. I know we're going to try them out. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
the courier system. I don't know. Well, at the end of the day, I think if you can let people who are specialized in something do their specialized thing and not try to overextend yourself into other specialties, there you go.
The reason, simplify, which is one of our principles.
Yep.
But the reason why I bring that up is to let other people know. You might want to look around, and there might be someone that delivers your plots for the same price, and you're like, man, I don't have to spend $5,000 plus figure out how to use this stupid plotter.
Plus send somebody to go get the drawings, all that stuff.
Yeah. So look around for that. And then on a smaller firm note, We just had a guy. I think we're going to set everything up on Amazon so we get our ink situated and all that. But he went to Staples because the printer last night didn't work. So this morning he figured it out. And he just got the price. He found what we needed there at Staples and then looked it up on Amazon and then showed the cashier and they price matched everything. So he saved $60 because we bought a bunch of stuff. I was like, bam, that takes care of your hourly rate right there.
There you go. Made up for it 100%. Yeah. So, Perry, last shout out here would be, please send in your worst and best advice that you ever got, professionally or personally. We'd love to have you on. We'd love to hear your golden sultry voice, sir.
Yes. And everyone else, so I asked him to leave a review, and he only listens on SoundCloud. But if you listen on iTunes or anything like that, on your phone, you can leave a review. We'd really appreciate to hear the feedback and to get a bump in the rating so other people listen.
Yeah.
We're also transparent.
We're also transparent. There you go. Yeah. Next item.
Okay, let's talk about meetings. We just had a really good meeting with a builder, and the reason why we had this meeting is we, in our category, so there's BizWest is a newspaper in all of Colorado, but they break it down by Northern Colorado, Denver, and then I think Southern Colorado.
Yep.
And they have tiers of how much money you make. So like if you're a company with 5 million plus, you're in one tier. If you're in $1 million to 2 million, you're in another. Just think about 5 different tiers. So in our tiers, we were the third fastest growing company in every sector in our tier. So we went to this event, and Lance was doing more of the glad handing. I was doing more of the
baby handing.
Baby.
Al had his baby and his wife there. I had my fiance there too.
Yeah. But someone came up just because of the baby, and we got a meeting with them too. So.
And usually I'm not. I get kind of gun shy at like those kind of events where I just feel like, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable going up and glad handing people and stuff like that. But in this case, I always need something where we have something to talk about or like mutual congratulations. Yeah. So if anybody listening, if your firm or your company or you ever get invited to do something like this where you will receive an award, go to it 100%. Just for the networking with all of these different people, because it's so easy to start the conversation. You can just go up and say, hey, saw you up there. Congratulations. Would love to learn more about your company. Can we do coffee sometime? Can we do a lunch? Yep. All those sorts of things. It was everybody was so happy and so loose at the event. It was awesome. So we landed out of that event. We landed a meeting that we just had yesterday or the day before.
Yesterday, probably.
That we're going to talk
Days
about.
Blend.
But then, yeah, exactly. But then a couple other ones that are pretty strategic for us in our development. We're meeting with a bank next week in Boulder. We're meeting with the biggest real estate holding company in Boulder, who then recommends people to do tenant finishes for their clients that come in and that are going to rent their spaces and stuff like that.
Meeting with an accounting firm.
We're going to vet those people. Yep. And then we're meeting with the most successful, the CEO of one of the most successful company in Longo.
Okay, so now that we have these meetings, let's talk about meeting strategy. And what I mean by that is how to prepare for it, what happens during it, and maybe some insights. So I'd say the first thing that's very important is to have a positive attitude. Now, like everything we say, I would put your expectations at 0, meaning you don't think that you're going to get the job or you're going to get something from them. You just have a positive attitude towards that general possibility.
Exactly. You might not get anything out of it at the end of the day. So no expectations, I think, is 100% critical.
Especially if you think about the meeting that we're going to have with the 50 million to 100 million guy. We need to prepare, and I think we should ask questions and be insightful in our questions. Like, how did you specifically go about doubling your growth? Was it all through referrals that they grew, or did you have a strategy for going after a different market, expanding that way? But anyways, I think some people would say, man, you have to think, we're gonna get this job.
We're going in there. We're sharks.
Yeah,
we're gonna take them for all they're worth or whatever. Yeah,
yep.
Exactly.
And I think our attitude is give first, and then reciprocity comes.
Right.
So I would say positive attitude and then give. So on one of these meetings with the contractor, not only do we want a ton of their work, And then also he told us about a ton of their work that they turned down. They turned down $1 million homes because they are commercial contractors. And then I made a joke, because you said, hey, who do you refer that to? And he's like, oh, we don't have anyone. So I go, hey, my name is Al Gore.
Al Gore, F9 Production, shook his hand. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it was before that, we have a big commercial project that we're going after. So we said, hey, we'd like you
exactly
to be involved.
Yeah. So we did bring in like a small portfolio that was tailored. I would say there's also like a key to tailoring what you're bringing to a meeting, which probably sounds like common sense, but at the end of the day,
not common practice.
Exactly.
Common sense is not common practice.
Exactly. So it might be common sense, but it might not be common practice. So what I did was we put together our 3 biggest multifamily residential projects.
Yeah.
So that we could show that, hey, we do big stuff. It might not be big commercial stuff, and that's what these guys do, a lot more commercial and public work. But they do the multifamily stuff. And this particular contractor said they actually, he likes to do it. Some of his other supers might not like to do it. So that was kind of like enticing to them that, oh, hey, it's a possibility that these guys might be able to be a referral to us from their developers, that they're looking for a new contractor or stuff like that.
And he reiterated what we know is true, is that a 45-unit townhome is sometimes more complicated than a huge industrial factory.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, especially when it comes to the clientele. I think that was one of the things he's like, we love building these, construction-wise, it might be easier than commercial in certain ways because you're dealing with like a type 5 construction or something like that. But then he's like, when it comes down to like the warranty, because you have to warranty them for a year usually.
But still, I would say construction-wise, it might even be harder too, because you're doing weird jogs, you're doing little conditions, you're doing drops off. And with some of these steel up, there's only 4 walls and a roof. Obviously, it can get more complicated with the different trades, and if the factory is specific, but I mean a general warehouse.
Yeah. So when I brought that little 3-page portfolio out, I just explained, hey, this is what we do, and then I just casually asked, would you guys ever be interested in doing stuff like this? And he said, oh yeah. And then the second thing I brought out was, I said, well, there is one project that we have where we will need a contractor at a certain point, and I want to show you and see if you'd be interested in it. And it's a commercial building. It's a commercial building to the north of us. So he took a look at it, and and the eyes lit up. So I think at the end of the day, you have to bring something to the table that is enticing to the other person, so that everybody understands, like, this is a reciprocal relationship that you're trying to establish. It's not just one-sided.
Yep.
So whatever kind of interesting ways you can come up with, of even maybe you don't have a building, I don't know, some other way you have to figure out how to have the reciprocity.
And here's maybe the nuance between getting the deal or getting work from them and then having a general positive attitude. Because if you go in there like a shark, and I'd like to hear other people's perspective who maybe do the shark mentality. Because my view is that they might
give us some advice if you
will. Yeah. The whoever you're meeting with might get the feeling, oh, they're only here to use me or my resources, and maybe subtly or subconsciously shuts them down. Where it's just a general positive, like, hey, I like these guys. A lot of people like to work with who they like.
Exactly.
I think that's huge. And then all of a sudden it becomes like, hey, here's something that you might be interested in. And what are they naturally going to do? Oh, I got some stuff for you guys too,
Exactly, yeah.
So I'd say that's the nuance to
even for landing the meeting. So to swing it back to this, the other gentleman we were scheduled to meet with next week. Again, this guy's a super successful CEO. They took their firm from 50 to 100 million. They don't do architecture; they do different stuff. But he was not totally open to meeting with us right away because he said, hey, I don't have any architecture work. And so me being trying to be a creative person, I said, oh, well, actually, we just wanted to pick your brain, number one. And then number two, we're developers, and we're developing 8 condos, and we understand that with your kind of growth,
they can't find enough people. That's how much they're growing.
Yeah. We found out at the event that the unemployment rate is 1.8% in Colorado, which is basically zero.
Yeah. Because people are in transition. So
Transition.
3 is basically full employment.
Or they don't want to work. They're in between jobs, stuff like that. So when I said the second part is when I think in that email, then he came back and said, oh, okay, I see. Like, because we are trying to be a resource, and And this is a strategy that I want to try to go after with our development is, man, if we could just find one of these companies that's growing like crazy and we could just lock down the sale, all said and done with one of them, what a no-brainer.
Yep.
Just boom, moved in the whole branch.
So
for better or for worse, I don't know if people want to work and live next to each other, but
yeah. I remember us talking about how you get work starting up a firm in the beginning podcast. Mm-hmm. So I won't touch too much on that. And then it being a huge question that we are trying to figure out years ago, and that I was asking prominent architects how they do it. And, some said, oh, they just stole them from their old client. And our answer was we advertised. But so I want to make clear, because some people might say, hey, this is great for during the meeting, but how do you get the meeting? And where all of these ones came from, whereas we went to an award ceremony because we were part of it. But just know that there's award ceremonies in every state, every city, and who puts them on is normally someone who's trying to make a profit, even if they're a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. So even if you aren't invited to go, you could find out where they are, and you can buy a ticket for a seat.
Yep.
$40, whatever. And then you just use the same strategy as Lance, like, hey, congratulations, I saw. And normally, like, they announce
it's
the
so
people.
Simple.
If you ever have the time, I'd like to sit down and talk to you. And you can say, you're an architecture business, and just know if they're like, oh, we don't have any need for it, then use as a backup. No, I'm learning I just want to, from a business to business perspective, my business is growing. So I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit more, something like that. Or, you can have another backup.
Backup. Yep. But you see how it works.
Yeah,
exactly.
And there's a whole bunch of different meetups too. It doesn't have to be award ceremony. There's just general business meetups, small entrepreneurial meetups.
The chamber. Yeah, exactly.
Chamber.
There's all kinds of stuff all over the place. So check it out. Anything else? Anything else on meeting etiquette?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Nope.
How about this? Last thing would be maybe to follow up, right? Or leave them thinking about the meeting a little bit longer. Like, can it linger a little bit more in their brains, so that they feel more compelled to get back to you? Just it keeps you in the back of their brain. What we did at the end of the meeting was we said, I gave this guy a really good, really well-deserved compliment, actually. He was just so gregarious and fun to hang out with. He was a guy our age, hilarious. We laughed a lot during the meeting, and I said, dude, I don't know if I said dude. Probably.
Dude. Listen.
I was wearing shorts to the meeting.
Yeah.
But I said, your personality is so infectious. I said, it would behoove you not to be on the Art of Construction podcast. So I referred him over to Devin Tilley to see if he could get on, because Devin runs it out of Denver. I think he'd be perfect. It would help promote his business, and then, bridge connections and all that stuff, because, builders need windows and all that sort of thing. And then I text him the episode we were on, and he said, "Oh, perfect. I'll listen to it on the way to Denver." So I think there's, that's probably a super unique situation, but at the very least, it could be like maybe even a couple hours after the meeting, send a thank you in an email, send a thank you the next day, something like that.
Yep. So I'm going to email him today, because you text, so this will be great.
Yeah.
And say, hey, here's a link to their website, and here's Devin's email.
Perfect. And just
exactly.
So then get him flowing right in there.
Because maybe he listened to it, and you know how busy people are. Totally
super
like,
busy.
oh yeah, I was going to get a hold of that guy.
Yeah. He'd be awesome on there. Love to listen to him.
Yep.
Okay. I want to talk about.
I don't.
You don't.
I'm just kidding. I don't know what to.
Just not taking things personally.
Cool.
From a business perspective.
Yep.
And I think it's ultra critical. So one of the things Alex and I have been talking about lately is your clients sort of become your friends, and some of them actually become our pretty good friends, to where we meet their family, they meet our family, we know each other's wives, we know each other's kids.
You got a couple best friends out of these deals.
Yeah, the best ever.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't become friends, but a lot of times you do, and it's hard not to, especially when you're doing stuff like designing somebody's house or even a builder. In some ways I consider like builders sort of clients, because then maybe we'll hire them to do certain things, stuff like that.
Can I tell a quick story? I remember one of our first house we got together. Shout out Tim.
Oh yes, perfect example.
And I really cut it off at 5:36 now. I got a kid, been moving houses. But he used to call me at 7, 8 at night. I'd be at my desk working all the time. And then after that project, I remember a month goes by, like, man, I missed Tim.
Yeah.
I missed Tim.
Yeah.
So definitely.
Well, it boils down to this. A lot of these movers and shakers out there doing and making deals, they have to have good personality. So, like, it's kind of contagious that you catch their personality. And if you're a mover and shaker, then so, like, you're going to become, like, buddies in some way. So, where I'm going with this is, with those buddies, if they're developer buddies, okay, sometimes if they have a new project, you know, we'll bid on it. We know we're competing against other people. Maybe we don't get the project.
Yep.
Should we take it personally? Should we take it personally and go have like some kind of meeting with them and bleed our hearts out? And no, I think the answer is you need a 40,000 foot perspective, right? You need to understand that, like, look, this is a long game of golf, right, that we're playing, like bigger than 18 holes or something like that. So, like, yeah, we didn't get that project. But if we show candor in the fact that we didn't get that project, we don't take it personally, I think that permeates into the whole process with them.
Yep. And I'll give 2 examples. I think you need to put yourself in their perspective. So one of the developers, we're doing a huge townhome complex, huge. And then I was in the 3rd meeting with them because we do OAC, which is owner, architect, contractor meeting. And one of them goes, hey, we're doing another big project up in Broomfield, wherever they're doing it. And they go, it's 100 units. And I go, oh, cool. And then he immediately says, because he thought of, and we're using someone else. and I go, that's, that's fine. And
your brain probably wasn't even going there, was it? Like, ooh, or was it? Or were you thinking, ooh, who are you using? You going to use us?
Know what? I think I maybe would have asked, but the reason why I wasn't upset or anything, because I know our firm is literally dedicated to finishing up this 45 unit.
Yeah.
And they know that we're a 7-man firm and we got other stuff. So it makes sense for them to break up and do it with another firm. Like, they have multiple. I'm sure they're doing another project with another firm.
Exactly. And a lot of these big developers, that's the way it works.
Yeah.
Right? Why would you want to put all of your eggs in one basket?
And I was thinking, if we got so big where we are doing 20 units here, 20 units in a different city, 20 units in another city, I would almost want like a real estate agent for each one. You know what I mean? Like, you sell these, you sell those, you sell those. You know, if they were at the same time, we're never going to get that huge, probably.
That's what he thinks.
But would that make sense? Yeah. Or maybe I'm wrong.
No. I think it makes sense, not only just from not putting your eggs all in one basket, but even a specializing basket. You know, like, oh, well, this Becky is really good in Broomfield. Why wouldn't we use Becky in Broomfield?
She lives in Broomfield.
Exactly. Yeah. Becky from Broomfield.
Yeah. Becky's the best. Then the other one, it was condos. And the guy said, hey, you didn't get it. So we a lot of times we'll just email and ask, and we won't say why. We won't ask why. You know, like, oh, why didn't you choose us? Blah, 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 you know. The only thing we will ask is, hey, we just want to know where we landed on the budget.
And we don't even ask for specific numbers. We were just like low, medium, high.
Yep. And he's the one, he's like, hey, if you guys want to know why you didn't get it, give me a call.
Which was rare. I mean, we've never had anybody say that. Like, I want to tell you guys. So if going into this phone call, if we would have had this vendetta and like this anger about us, I think it could have went awful, right?
Yeah. And I would say a lot of times they don't even tell you. It's been 6 months and
take the hint. take the hint by the radio silence.
And he goes, actually, you were $30,000 to $40,000 lower than this other one, but this is all those guys do.
Yep.
And this is our first time doing that. And we go, oh, that makes sense.
And he goes, hey, he goes, don't sweat it. I know we're going to work together. He goes, I love working with you guys. Yep. I know we're going to work together in the future. So again, 40,000 foot perspective, knowing that like this guy is our age. We have another 30 years to work together. Their deals are going to happen. And I truly believe sometimes you don't get those projects, and it's the universe has a reason of not allowing you to get that project, like maybe from a liability standpoint. Who knows?
And I didn't even need the reassurance that we'll work together in the future. Yeah. I just bought his logic that he wanted to go someone that's done 20 of these.
And even when we sent off that proposal for that one, we were kind of on edge. Like, oh, I don't know. This is sort of out of our wheelhouse. It's sort of in, sort of out.
I wonder if they could feel that vibe too.
Maybe. Yeah. It was a terrible meeting.
It was. Were we tired? Was I
We're
tired?
so tired.
Why were we so tired?
Because I don't know. I think we both worked outside all weekend on our houses or something like that, and then we went to the meeting. We were exhausted. It was just complete exhaustion. It was a Monday meeting.
I don't know what was going on. It wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Be prepared. So
Shout out. I'll blame Atlas.
Yeah.
Shout out Atlas.
shout out Atlas. Yeah. So try if you can think about it 40,000 feet away. Try to have that like overall view of what's happening.
But know that business gets personal, but business is not personal.
Boom. You got it. You heard it
End
there.
of podcast.
You heard it there first. And with that, I would like to welcome, we're going to now jump into the best and worst advice. Our good friend, avid listener, Krueger of Krueger Architects out of California. He does some amazing work. Check him out on his website. He's like us in that he's an architect-led design build firm. And so I really appreciate what he's doing for the industry, and we really appreciate him being on the podcast. So here we go. We're going to listen to him and then have a little reaction to it.
Hey guys, this is Kurt Krueger. So my best and worst advice, I'm going to cheat a little bit and give you two because they're the flip side of each other. Both I got good advice and bad advice on two different examples on the exact same subject, and they're two of the best and worst that I can think of. So they're both pertaining to the subject of architecture. So on good advice, I shared this on the Entree Architect podcast, is that one of my mentors and bosses shared with me during the time that I was still in school and interning, and just all I knew is how to just work and work and work and burn the midnight oil. And he gave me a great advice that look, you're not going to get nearly as much out of staying here late in the night as you would getting out in the world and exploring it. And he wasn't just talking about architecture, he was talking about the world in general, and that when you go out and you explore the world, you learn new things, and those new things you can bring back into your work. So that's the good advice. The flip side of that advice came from another person whose name shall remain anonymous, who thought the opposite and made a remark to me one time that, well, why do you need to go to those places? Can't you just see them in books and get the same thing out of it? I think I'll just leave that at that and let you guys chew on that. Okay, so then the second bit of good and bad advice came from a friend of mine who was a few years older than me in school. And he gave me the advice that I still take to this day about reading when it comes to architecture, and to read the writings of different architects, both their theories and thoughts, not only to better understand their build work, but to better understand where they're coming from, and then in the end to help you better think like an architect. And I think that's extremely valuable to do, rather than just looking at the buildings themselves. So the bad advice that I got was taking that idea and that notion of reading as much as I can. Doesn't really matter if they're particular architects that I like or don't like. When I was in school, I picked up a bunch of those books. So there could be a lot of the architects like Peter Eisenman, Bernard Schumi, Zaha Hadid, and I knew I had a bit of an old school professor, and so I put a stack of those books on my desk, probably just to get a little bit of a rise out of him as well, but partially because I liked him, and I didn't always like the works of those people, but I liked the thoughts and the nature behind that. So he said to me at that time, well, you should really get rid of those. You won't get anything out of them. Which, to me, I don't know. That's not something that I ever think about really anything in general. I think that even if you agree or disagree, certainly you can get something out of it, even if it's a deeper understanding of where someone else is coming from. Only to then, if you want to disagree with it, so be it. But I always have felt that, to better understand the world and better understand people, to at least understand and read and see where they're coming from. So that's it. Those are my two pieces of bad and good advice. So thanks again, guys. Really appreciate having me on, and keep up the great work.
Okay, hey, thanks. I thought that was great. I only have things to add on to that. Not so much of a reaction, but a piggyback. So the go out and explore. I think the unsaid thing about that, or maybe the hint, I might be wrong, but a lot of people say go to Europe. And I think also go to Europe. I think that's great.
I didn't get a job once because I didn't go to Europe.
Yeah. I might fire you because of it, actually, now that you brought that up. But what I'd say is find new things in old places. And old places, I don't mean physically old places. I mean places that you might not think that you'll find them. So your hometown. I remember you've been to Rochester, Minnesota.
Yep, it's all right.
He doesn't either.
No, it's the best. It's pretty cool.
It's a gem for a mid-sized city.
The amount of infrastructure in like the downtown area for what is 100,000?
100,000
is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything like it on the planet. I mean, it's the Mayo Clinic. Come on.
Yeah. So I think my second or third year of college, I decided for a weekend I was going to go back and be a tourist in my own place where I grew up, been to downtown all the time. And I literally did what you do in Europe. You just walk around, you find a place to eat, you walk some more, you go into like any building that isn't locked, you just go into it. And it was amazing because I saw it even better than I've ever seen it before. So in Colorado, you don't have to go to Europe. You can go down to Pueblo and they have an amazing library.
Yeah.
You can go to Golden. You can go. So and I don't know if that was his advice to go to Europe, but if you can't, know that it's still here. If you live in LA, there's a lot of things to see in LA, and just know the Europeans that like I'd meet in the cars and travel around, and they'd be from Spain or wherever. And they go, "You Americans are crazy." They're like, "I've lived in Europe, my whole life, so I've never been to Germany." And it's literally right there. Like Germany is as big as Wisconsin and a half.
Yeah.
So
there was a few girls I dated in Colorado where I would take them to just different buildings and stuff like that, and they're like, "I've lived here my whole life and never been here before." Yeah. So right around the corner, there's surprises.
Yep. And then the second one was to read. And I want to echo this. It's awesome advice. And I have two veins. So one for architecture, I would recommend Kindergarten Chats by Louis Sullivan. I think that's great. He was the mentor to Frank Lloyd Wright, which is obviously, he's a badass. And then I would say also don't get sucked into that world too much. I think too often architects get into archi speak, and that's not a dig on the podcast. Shout out podcast archi speak, because they don't do this. It's getting into theory and BS,
and you need to be able to relate to people that are not swimming in that every single day. It's as simple as that.
Yep. There's just something about sometimes when some of these guys go off, and even some of the famous people. So I don't even know if this is correct advice, because a lot of the famous people will talk that way, and I think it's new and it's interesting and it's high art, but and maybe you need to speak that way to get to that level. But I see people not at that level speaking like that, and then a lot of people in academia take it way too far and in just a terrible way. And then young people coming in, we've had people apply to this firm and talk to I was just like, nothing, please. I didn't say that whatsoever. And that's not my general assessment of students. It was just this assessment, like, man, you're actually in the hole, and these words are not protecting you whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I would say read, but then expand different. And the first one, the gateway drug I'd give you into this other world would be the book's just called Jobs by Walter Isaacson. It's about Steve Jobs, and he bridges the design and business world. And then I think you can explore those other books so that you don't get pigeonholed. And that book is so big, just go to your library, get the book on tape / people don't say book on CDs, but book on tape, and just put it in your car when you're driving to work.
Why the heck don't they say CDs?
I know. No one says CDs. Get the book on tape.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
It's invaluable. It's an amazing book.
Yeah. Even if it's on your phone, it's not book on tape.
What? No, it is.
It is book on tape.
It is book on tape.
Yeah, sorry. Or
sign up for Audible for your free first month and then quit afterwards.
There you go.
If you listen to it.
Yeah. They're not a sponsor.
Yeah. If you were a sponsor, I wouldn't say quit. So think about that, Audible.
Yeah. The thing I'd piggyback on top of and kind of go tangential is Kurt said the last segment was the bad advice he got from that professor when he put the books on top of his desk. He said, get rid of those. And I think that's really ignorant because I think that's where ignorance is bred by people, is when they just deny information because they maybe they really have a problem with what those people are saying in those books or those people are saying on a podcast or whatever, any kind of media there is. I think it's so important to understand the other side of the coin, right? So if touch on politics, if you are the majority of America, I truly believe is like this middle ground, right? Where we just want to have our families and we want to live like a prosperous life.
Have some Bud Light, grill out.
Yep, exactly. But in order for people to move legislatures through or to try to get more people to come from the middle ground, isn't it important that you understand both sides of the coin then? That you understand like the extreme left, the extreme right, and you're trying to play to the things on both of those sides and find some middle ground? And
to add on to that point, Jordan Peterson, you can Google, he's on YouTube. He's an academic, one that I really admire. I admire a lot of them. And one of his points and principles that I think is huge. So probably maybe his best advice parroted through me is no, because there's, social justice, there's people protesting and all that. And he goes, if you don't know the other side more than they do, then shut up. I mean, he says it probably nicely.
No, I think he literally said shut up.
Yeah.
He was just on Joe Rogan lately, yeah.
Yeah, but how profound is that? Because I remember in English class, we had a debate, and I didn't get to, apparently it's still a thorn in my side. They didn't pick me to be, the teacher didn't, because I didn't have a good enough answer. But I knew that I was going to study both sides, and I was going to really actually study their side so that I could come up with their arguments. I think that's instrumental
and now,
as a life skill, is that when you go to criticize someone else, if you don't know their side as good as their supporters, shut up.
So how could this relate to architecture, business, if you're a student, all of those things? Number one, if you're a student, I think what are the people who are going to be critiquing your project looking for, right?
Big fancy words.
So maybe. So you're understanding their side of the coin and placating to that, right? Same thing with the developer. Like, what are they going to be looking for in the end, right? How can you placate to that? Or for the development that we're doing, who are we placating these products, these buildings that we're making?
Or from what we were talking about earlier, from the developer. Oh, they didn't go with me, or why would they go with me? What are they thinking? What is their perspective? What is useful to them?
Yeah. So to completely ignore what other people have to say, even though you hate it, is silly. I try to confront that head on all the time, no matter how crazy I think anybody is. I at least try to go like, wow, I hear you. Now, do I think it's crazy? Yeah. Or maybe I don't think it's crazy, but I have at least entertained their thought in my head for a bit. It can't hurt. What can it hurt?
Yep. And then the only thing too, that why I say with books, blend them with regular books, and it kind of goes to his first advice, is don't get stuck just in the office. Go out and live life. So don't get stuck in one side of books. Go out and get all the types of books. Is because there's I forgot what it is, but it's everything. Almost everything you do can be interesting, but is it worth your time? So you have to do that little analysis. So if you're going to go deep into some theory and then read and compare all these guys, does that somehow apply to your business and how you're selling yourself and how you're creating your architecture? Then yes, it's very valuable to just dive in. And as a student, I think you should dive in because you have that time. You don't think you have the time, you have the time. But as a professional, is what you're doing, are you going to somehow physically manifest that? And then if you're not, then maybe gear your reading towards some other way.
Yeah. So speaking of development, one thing I wanted to talk about is, for the development talk today, was the 5 pieces of the development pie. And this sort of came in like a conversation I was having with somebody else of like, how many pieces do you think you need to have before you're a partner in the deal? And I would contend that it's 3 out of the 5, okay? And I'll sort of list them off here, and I'd like to hear what you have to say. So the first part is the money, right? And that's probably going to be 15% of the deal in terms of like you're going to be paying on an average 15% interest on the money. In other words, when you get the construction loan, when you raise the private capital, the money component can sort of get your foot in the door as one of the partners. The second part would be the contractor, which is everybody probably knows by now. Is that I just passed the contractor's license, and now actually this morning I took all of the application over to the city, and hopefully going to get approved to build our building. So that contractor will account for 10% of the construction budget, right? And is a major player in the development scheme. The third point is the architect. That's us. 10%, right? It's hard to build a building without drawings. And I would count the engineers in this scheme of everything too. Okay. Fourth would be the developer. There is, when you get down to your pro forma, the developer has a 10% fee. Like that's the profit they want to make on the whole thing. And then the fifth one is realtors. So the realtor can count why they're a player in it is they could essentially be 6% of profit, right? They have a big portion of that. So I think you have to at least wear 3 of the 5 hats.
So partner, it's interesting. And real estate agents can give insight of what might make something sell better or worse. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
they know the market. They're right on the pulse of it. They have strategies for selling, like your house.
Yep. And then there's a partner there could be someone who is a partner in money, but not a partner in decision making. So you actually say 3. You need to be 3. I say 1.
You only need 1 to be a partner in it.
Well, you need to be the one. And what I mean is that I was drawing up a building, and we were debating whether we should have siding here or whatever, or what we should do with the facade. And I gave my perspective why, and then I told them what they want to do is a wash and only has negative consequences, right? Still, they're like, okay, let's figure out what the contractor says. He'll be at the next meeting, all that. So they're running through the numbers, and the estimator was going through how much everything's going to cost, and the contractor finally just said it's going to be a wash, and then they agreed to what I wanted, right? So as the, quote unquote architect, they didn't just listen to me, right? They might next time, because I know that I kind of knew what was going on.
Yeah.
But even if it was going to be a wash, or let's say it was going to cost a little bit more to do what I wanted, or a little bit less, it only mattered what the developer said. If the developer said, take those out or put those in, that's what was going to happen. Unless it was some egregious error where like they're going to make something unsafe, thus I cannot do the building, right? That was the final word. So you have to be the developer you can give input, you can have a say, you can give suggestions, but if you aren't the developer, you don't get to override anyone. You don't get to say nothing.
Possibly.
I mean, unless like the architects can say, hey, developer, you can't do this because of code, you need to do this, or a lot of times it's not confrontational whatsoever.
Okay, how about
it's
this?
A lot of input.
Yeah, you're right. If you're the developer, but I would argue the developer is probably 2 things, right? They're at least a lot of the developers we work with, they're still 3 of these 5 things usually. Sometimes they're the money, plus
the developer,
which is like spearheading the thing. They understand the entire problem. Those are the good developers. And then maybe the realtor or a contractor. So like I hear you.
Right.
The developer has the last say, 100%.
Yes.
But I think to be a partner in the deal, you've got to wear multiple hats here.
The developer in our cases is normally the money. Mm-hmm. Almost always the real estate agent also.
Yeah.
And they might be the contractor. So think about our big 3. They are the money and the real estate agent. And then a lot of them are also the contractor.
A lot of them are the contractor too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But if they weren't, and if it was just a developer and they hired you, I'd say they still like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Like we couldn't come with the architect, the real estate person, and the contractor. If we came as all 3, they'd probably really listen to our suggestions a lot, but we couldn't override them.
Nope. Yeah, they're the final say.
Yeah,
absolutely, 100%. Okay. So with that, I think we'll wrap everything up with some code questions.
Good. I've been 100 for 100 this whole time, so let's keep knocking them out of the park.
100 for 100, huh? Yeah. I bet our listeners would agree.
Yep.
100%. Okay, so here we go.
Never got one wrong.
We got 3 solid questions. Honestly, if you are just not even an architect, these would pertain to you because I guarantee a lot of people are homeowners that are listening, okay? And they're going to have their roof replaced. So if you're going to have your roof replaced, you're going to have to deal with drip edges. So that's what we're talking about today.
Yep. And also, I'd say all of these you can use to impress the opposite sex at any time. Bring it up during Survivor. Bring it up at the bar.
Wow.
Bring it up at a baseball game.
Yeah, that first date.
First date.
Talk about drip edges.
It's so powerful. If you're evil, please don't listen to this. Only use this power for good.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Wow, superhero stuff. So this is out of the IBC Chapter 15, Roof Assemblies and Rooftop Structures. What were you going to say?
It's so sexy. What's going on now?
Okay. So it's section 1507.2.9.3 drip edge. Provide drip edge at eaves and gables of shingle roofs. Overlap to be a minimum of how many inches? So how many inches do you need to overlap the pieces of drip edge on a roof that has shingles? Okay.
Are you talking about this, the gutter and then the drip edge?
Yep. Exactly. So
And the overlap for the shingles?
Nope, the actual pieces of the drip edge. So they're going to take the drip edge.
Like horizontally.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So for somebody who doesn't know what this is let's say you tear off a roof, okay? At the edge of the roof, there's these pieces of metal and they're formed in a certain way.
Flashing is a familiar term.
Yeah, it's sort of like a flashing at the very bottom edge of it. And so they usually come in like 10-foot sticks or 10-foot lengths. Sorry, I shouldn't say sticks. 10-foot lengths. So how you have to overlap those, right? You can't have a gap. Otherwise water goes in there, house falls down, goes boom. No bueno.
Yeah.
Okay, so how many inches do you need to overlap? Okay. 1 inch. So A, 1 inch. B, 1.5 inch. G, 2 inches.
G.
Sorry. Let me start over. A, 1 inch. B, 1.5 inches. C, 2 inches. Or D, 3 inches. Let me repeat that. A, 1 inches. B, 1.5 inches. C, 2 inches. D, 3 inches.
Should I go with what I think the answer is, or should I go with my gut?
Go with your gut.
1.5.
Incorrect.
Oh, that's the first one I've ever gotten wrong.
First one he's ever gotten wrong. So the answer is 2 inches. 2 inches, everybody.
My gut, you have failed me.
Once again. Okay, the next one is another drip edge question. And this has to do with, so it's 1507.2.9.3 drip edge. Provide drip edges at eaves and gables of shingle roofs. Overlap a minimum of 2 inches.
2 inches.
Eave drip edges shall extend 1/4 inch below sheathing and extend back on the roof a minimum of 2 inches. Drip edge shall be mechanically fastened a maximum of how many inches? So every how many inches do you need to put a roofing nail into it? How many inches, okay? A, 6 inches. B, 12 inches. C, 18 inches. D, 24 inches. Another way to think of this is like, what is the maximum between each fastener that I could do before I'm out of building code? So A, 6 inches. B, 12 inches. C, 18 inches. D, 24 inches. Going with your gut, going with your brain.
With my brain, because I have attached these, and I've done it every 6 inches. I've just a rough. I don't even know the code. I just
incorrect. You would be within code, but it would be incorrect.
Well, no. That wasn't. I thought that I just overdid it.
Oh, yes, you did overdo it.
Yeah. See, 18 seems weird because studs are 16 inches on center, but it's not like you have to hit a stud.
Right. We're not going to, like, rafters are typically 24, right? Sometimes they are 16.
For drip edges, I keep thinking tiny houses, and I keep thinking the wind load of like ripping those things off.
Yeah, we went crazy on the tiny houses.
Yeah. 18.
12 inches. Once again.
That is the first one I've gotten wrong.
This guy is on fire, ladies and gentlemen. He's on fire.
I can't believe I had such a streak going.
Okay, last one. I hope you get this one. Okay? I hope you get this one.
Let's see.
All right. So this is 1507.9.2 deck slope. Wood shakes shall only be used on slopes of what slope or more? Okay. A, 112. B, 212. C, 312. D, 412. Shakes, wood shakes. What is the minimum slope you can put those babies on according to the IBC? A, 112.
I've
B,
only seen them on high slopes, so I'm going to say 4.
212. Congratulations, sir.
Hey!
Yeah.
The streak continues.
The streak continues. And with that, thanks for listening again, everybody. If you would be so kind as to leave us a review on iTunes, share things on SoundCloud. I think you can review us on SoundCloud. I actually have no idea.
Yes.
Probably. We're just going to say probably. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Anybody else is listening, we'd love to hear your best and worst advice, especially you, Mr. Perry. Please send your stuff in, and then we'll see you next week.
Thanks a lot.